Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live at the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio and Neil Haley Show. NeilHaley.com for more information. At Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. I'm all over the place. Just Google me. And I, again, in my anniversary at 9 years, I want somebody who wants to go and research me. How many interviews have I done? And what's your favorite? People ask me, well, what's my favorite interview of all time? I really can't tell you because I enjoy every one of them because I learn something from everyone. And that goes back to me as an educator and how I've evolved to 1,000 different things. But I'm excited to welcome my co-host Eric Remmel to the program. Eric, how are you? Another amazing guest we're going to have on. And it just keeps getting better and better every day. And every year we broadcast live from the Miami Book Fair, right?
Yes, sir. I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to speaking with Gregory here about his background and his book, so it should be a lot of fun.
All right, so I'm excited to welcome Greg Wallance to the program. Greg, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm fine, and Neil, thank you for having me on your terrific show. Really appreciate it.
Hey, well, see, I appreciate you saying terrific show. The difference, Greg, when we can have a situation where I get to interview somebody for, let's say, we're going like a marathon of interviews in 4 hours or 6 hours. It's different if you were booked on my show for a 9 o'clock where I'd have X amount of time to prepare. But when you do about 15 interviews, they just kind of evolve into what we want to have as a conversation. So, Greg, tell me a little bit about how you became an author and your story.
Well, I love telling stories. I love great stories with heroic people, likable people who are put in impossible positions. And it really was an outgrowth of my career as a lawyer and as a federal prosecutor. And my first book was a law enforcement story built around information I obtained while I was a federal prosecutor in New York City. And since then I've written 4 books, and my current book is The Woman Who Fought an Empire, Sarah Aronson and her Nilly Spy Ring. And as you can tell, it's a spy story, an espionage story. And the setting is World War I. We just celebrated the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day that ended what was an absolute cataclysm in human affairs. And Sarah Aronson played a very, very important role in that war. And the way she did that, sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Sarah Aronson. Sarah Aronson was born in Palestine, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire, and is now Israel. And she was born in 1890 to Jewish immigrants from Romania. She was intelligent, beautiful, very independent-minded. Young men tended to fall in love with her. And she got married when she was in her early 20s to a Jewish businessman from Constantinople, now Istanbul, the capital of Turkey. Then Constantinople was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. And she came home from Constantinople for a visit not long after World War I started. And by a coincidence of timing and geography, her trip home took her through the genocide against the Armenians by the Ottomans, the first major genocide of the 20th century. This is now 1915. And it was a searing event for her. She saw the corpses on both sides of the train tracks, families being beaten by the Ottomans, dogs feeding on decomposing bodies. And she became convinced that unless Great Britain won its war against the Ottoman Empire, and the two were engaged in a titanic battle for control of the Middle East, unless Great Britain won, this was going to happen. This would be the fate of the Jews of Palestine. And so she then led a spy ring in Palestine from behind enemy lines that provided absolutely crucial intelligence to the British. This takes us up through 1917. But let me stop in case you've got some questions.
How I have a lot of questions. There's a lot of research involved in this, right? And when you're talking about a mystery, you could have gone in the direction of what you did as a prosecutor for so many years. You chose this. Why did you choose this, and why did you research the amount of research you had to put forth in doing this?
Well, I chose her story because I've always been interested in World War I, because in so many ways it shaped the world we live in, even today, 100 years later. I've been interested in spying because of my experience as a federal prosecutor, where I was using some of the same techniques, recruiting informants, running covert operations, we called them sting operations, using wiretaps to gather information. And I was interested in a woman spy because I think that women in culture are portrayed most of the time in an unfair way, an unfair stereotype. If you look at movies like Femme Nikita or even Homeland, some episodes of Homeland, women are portrayed as femme fatales who use sex to seduce men, weaken their will, get their secrets, and then they betray them and destroy them. And it's a very unfair stereotype. And Sarah Aronson was the opposite. She's the antidote to that stereotype because she used skill. She had great leadership qualities, and you wouldn't have known it, you wouldn't have expected it, because nothing in her background suggested she was could be a spy. She had no training. She just picked it up and ran with it, if you will. And that was a woman who I think should be the image in cultural portrayals, movies, cable, and so on, and not the image of the femme fatale.
Wow. And very, very, very interesting when you talk about that and your interest of looking at that time period. What has been the feedback so far for your book, especially the interesting topic and the mystery? What has been the feedback by your fans and other authors?
Well, it's been different depending on where I am. In the United States, there's just kind of a, wow, I didn't know this. I didn't know there was a Sarah Aronson. I didn't know she did all that. And they're frankly very impressed by what she achieved. And then there's a kind of a dismay when I explain what ultimately happened to her. And in Israel, where she is well known, and I was on a book tour in Israel over the summer, the reaction of the audience was, well, I knew her story, but I didn't know all the details that I had provided both in the book and in my talks. And one of the reasons I was able to even give this additional information to Israeli audiences was because I had done my research in Israel, and I had found in the museum devoted to her, it was once her family home, an extraordinary amount of letters that she had written that had never been translated or published, certainly not translated in English and not really published either. And I used those letters to construct a narrative about what Sarah and everything she did and ultimately her fate. And therefore, even for an audience like Israel, which had some familiarity with her, I was able to give them some additional information. And spoiler alert, why is she well known in Israel? Well, after nearly a year of effective espionage, Sarah was caught. She was caught by the Ottomans. And we're now in October 1917. And she's tortured viciously. And she holds out. In fact, she doesn't only hold out, she taunts them. You think because I am a woman I will be weak. I dug your grave, Ottomans, and why did I do that? For I have seen how you shed the blood of the Armenians. But by the end of the fourth day, she can hold out no longer, and she's afraid that she will break and give up the names of her spies. And the next day, she's allowed to go home. Her family home is near where she's being tortured, to change her blood-stained clothing for clean ones. And she goes into the house alone because the Ottomans are guarding the house from all directions. She goes to a compartment where she had hidden a pistol for such an occasion, takes out the pistol, goes into the bathroom, shoots herself in the mouth. Even then, she doesn't die right away. She lingers in more agony for 4 days. And she finally dies on October 9th, 1917. And this is why she is known in Israel as the Jewish Joan of Arc, a young woman, a heroic young woman who sacrificed herself for a nation yet to be born. And in very rapid succession, after her death, history changed. The British broke through Turk lines in the Sinai Desert with the aid of Sarah's intelligence. The British government issued the Balfour Declaration, which promised Jews a homeland in Palestine, which was the stepping stone to Israel. And the British Army entered Jerusalem for the first time in 6 centuries since the Crusades. And Sarah, this young woman, age 27 when she died, played a critical role in those historic events. And that's another reason why I wanted to tell her story.
Very interesting. I mean, it sounds very intriguing, the book, a mystery. We don't want to spoil the whole thing. So where is the best place we can find information on you, Greg, and learn more about you? Where can we go?
Go to my website, www.gregorywallance.com. And my last name for listeners is Wallance. I was mistaken for Wallace. I can't tell you how many times. And it has my other books. One is about, the law enforcement book is about the theft of the French Connection heroin from the New York City Police Department, kind of a sequel to the movie. I wrote another book about the Civil War that was historical fiction, about the relationship between a lawyer and a slave named Dred Scott, who took a case to the Supreme Court that started that awful conflict. And my book before this one was about the American response to the Holocaust during World War II.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. Best of luck and continued success as an author, and enjoy the rest of the Miami Book Fair.
Thanks so much, Neil. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You too. Bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley's show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.